And then in terms of market and policy interventions that may be required to bring about this transition, I think we probably first need to touch on what's happening in the market today. So we've had a very significant boom in investment in the last 4 or 5 years in large-scale renewables. And in fact, there's no shortage of high-quality projects in Australia. Planning permission is not a key constraint. Unlike much of Europe, we have lots of land and significant renewable resource that can be accessed via the planning regime. But the grid has fallen behind. So we've seen a lot of volumes connected into the transmission system, despite that part of the transmission network being quite weak and unable to sustain correlated volumes of solar output in the middle of the day, for example, and that leading to voltage issues, and then curtailment. And we have seen actual curtailment. We've seen losses build up. So after the investment takes place, after the volumes come in to the market, we have seen investors take a hit with grid issues post financial close. So that's been quite a serious constraint on new investment for the past 24 months. And so we are working through, if you like, a backlog as an industry of investment in transmission to play catch up, to essentially ensure that the transmission is able to accommodate volumes that have already connected. So it is very much catch up. And then the next wave of investment, the idea is, and certainly the market operator, AEMO, is putting forward a long-term plan for transmission investment to be coordinated with generation, so that we don't get further periods of a lack of coordination and grid issues post-financial close, that there's a coordination, that the transmission is there for the generation. More of a build and they will come type approach, if you like. So the transmission is a huge challenge for the sector. The regulatory regime has been a bit slow to catch up, but I think it is catching up now, and I think there are reasons for optimism that the market bodies are now ready to act. On the market rules side, I think there are some interesting developments around development of new ancillary services, ancillary products that will enable the system to run at 80% plus renewables penetration. So looking at inverter-based systems and the inertia requirements in such a system, and then the products required to deliver that service as the spinning plant come off the system. There are discussions around capacity markets in Australia. We still have our energy-only market with spiky prices, which is great at providing signals for storage, but the level of merchant exposure for a storage asset is quite extreme when you consider that prices can rise to $15,000 a megawatt hour in a given settlement period. And so we obviously project those prices out into the long term for the purpose of business case assessment, but it is quite risky for investors in those assets. And so there is discussion around, is the current market fit for purpose for the transition to bring forward the scale of dispatchable capacity required to balance the system, which is renewables dominated. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. And the final one I would point out is the use of renewable auctions or government underwriting mechanisms. We have seen the state governments revert to reverse auctions to bring forward volumes, so CFD type auctions or price floor type auctions, as opposed to additional subsidies in the form of a top-up payment. They're looking to procure the volume, so they know the volume will be there, and then to plan the transmission to accommodate that volume. So again, it comes back to that coordination piece, and I think the industry is catching up on that front. So the government here often uses the words technology, not taxes, to describe its ambition and its approach to facilitating the transition. And really, when they talk about technology, a lot of what they're referring to is hydrogen. There's quite a lot of excitement around green hydrogen and a new export industry for Australia. So they're saying we're going to support technologies, bring the cost of those technologies down so that Australia can bring new products to the world market, rather than impose a tax on the externality being carbon. They're more looking at a subsidised approach.